The general's hands trembled as he stared at the janitor's wrist. The woman pushing the mop cart wore a faded blue uniform with a name tag that read Lurene, but it was the tattoo on her left wrist that made his blood run cold. A tactical dagger crossed with Roman numerals, the exact marking of Unit 17, a ghost unit that officially never existed, and according to every classified file he had ever read, every operator from that unit had died in Kandahar Province 10 years ago. But that was impossible, because the woman standing 3 feet away from him was very much alive. 2 hours earlier, Fort Bragg looked exactly like it did every Tuesday morning. The October sun cut through the North Carolina pine trees as personnel moved between buildings with practiced efficiency. In the administrative wing of the Special Operations Command headquarters, nobody paid attention to the cleaning staff. They never did. Lurene Calloway pushed her yellow mop cart down the polished hallway with steady rhythm. Her dark blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the standard blue janitor uniform with red trim along the collar. The fabric was worn but clean. Her green eyes stayed focused on the floor as she moved from office to office. At 32 years old, she had been working this job for 18 months. To everyone who passed her in the halls, she was invisible. Just another face in the background, just another person doing work that nobody wanted to think about. She preferred it that way. The morning routine never changed. Empty the trash bins, wipe down the desks, vacuum the floors, refill the paper towel dispensers. Simple work, repetitive work, the kind of work that let her mind go quiet for a few hours each day. The kind of work where nobody asked questions about who you used to be. Captain Derek Moss walked past her without a glance. He was new to the command, 30 years old with a Ranger tab and an attitude that screamed fresh promotion. He was talking loudly on his phone about a training exercise. When Lurene's mop bucket accidentally rolled into his path, he kicked it aside without breaking stride. Dirty water splashed across the floor. "Watch where you are going," he snapped without looking at her. "Some of us have actual work to do." Lurene said nothing. She simply bent down and started cleaning up the mess. Her hands moved with careful precision, no wasted motion, no visible emotion. Captain Moss was already 20 feet down the hallway, still talking on his phone, still convinced that his world was the only one that mattered. She finished cleaning and moved to the next office. This one belonged to a logistics officer who had covered his walls with deployment photos, images of Chinook helicopters and desert landscapes, pictures of young soldiers standing in front of forward operating bases that no longer existed. Lurene paused for just a moment at one photo, a Huey helicopter from decades past, the kind her grandfather used to tell stories about. He had been a door gunner in Vietnam. He used to say those old birds stayed in the sky through pure American willpower and prayers to a God who looked after fools and aviators. She could still hear his voice sometimes, especially on the hard days. Before we continue, tell us, has anyone ever underestimated you the way they underestimated her? By 1100 hours, Lurene had worked her way to the command wing. These offices belonged to the senior leadership, colonels and generals who made decisions that affected thousands of lives. She was supposed to clean these spaces quickly and quietly. The standing order was clear. Do not touch anything on the desks. Do not look at any documents. Do not speak unless spoken to. She entered the briefing room adjacent to the commander's office. The space was empty. A long mahogany table dominated the center of the room. Chairs lined both sides. An American flag stood in the corner next to the Special Operations Command guidon. The walls held framed photos of previous commanders, men who had led warriors into darkness and brought most of them home. Lurene was emptying the trash when she heard voices in the hallway. Captain Moss again. He was talking to someone else, another officer. They stopped just outside the briefing room door. "I'm telling you, the cleaning staff is a security risk," Captain Moss said. "Half of them barely speak English. They have access to every office in this building. Who knows what they see, what they hear?" The other voice belonged to a major she did not recognize. "You were being paranoid, Derek. They're background checked. Besides, it's not like the janitors can read classified documents."
Both men laughed. Lurene continued working. She had heard worse. In 18 months of pushing a mop, she had become an expert at being invisible, at letting words slide past her like water off a windshield. These men had no idea who she was, what she had done, what she had survived, and that was exactly how it needed to stay. She moved to wipe down the conference table. Her reflection appeared in the polished wood surface. She barely recognized the woman looking back at her. The short hair was gone, the tactical gear was gone, the team was gone. Everything that had defined her for 8 years of her life had been burned away in the mountains of Afghanistan. The door opened. General Marcus Webb entered the briefing room. He was 58 years old, with gray hair and the weathered face of a man who had spent decades in uniform. 2 stars gleamed on his collar. He carried a leather folder under his arm and wore the expression of someone preparing for a long day of meetings. Captain Moss and the Major followed him into the room. "General, I have the updated training schedule," Captain Moss said. He placed a document on the table. Then he noticed Lurene. He frowned. "You need to leave. We have a meeting starting." Lurene nodded. She gathered her supplies and turned toward the door. Her movements were calm, practiced, forgettable. That was when it happened. As she reached for her mop cart, her uniform sleeve pulled back slightly, just for a second, just enough to expose her left wrist. The tattoo was small, faded. Most people wouldn't have noticed it. Most people wouldn't have known what it meant. But General Webb was not most people. He had been reaching for his coffee cup. His hand froze in midair. His eyes locked onto Lurene's wrist, the tactical dagger, the Roman numerals, the exact marking of Unit 17, a ghost unit that officially never existed. And according to every classified file he had ever read, every operator from that unit had died in Kandahar Province 10 years ago. But that was impossible, because the woman standing 3 feet away from him was very much alive. "What is your name?" General Webb asked. "Lurene Calloway, sir." Her voice was steady, quiet, the voice of someone who had learned to disappear. "Your full name?" "Lurene Mae Calloway." The general took a step closer. His hands were shaking now. Captain Moss and the Major exchanged confused glances. They had never seen General Webb like this. The man was a legend in special operations. He had commanded units in every major conflict for the past 30 years. Nothing rattled him. Nothing shook his composure. Until now. "Where did you serve?" the general asked.
Lurene hesitated. For 18 months she had avoided this moment. For 18 months she had kept her head down and her mouth shut. But there was no avoiding it now. Not with General Webb staring at her like he had seen a ghost. "I was with the 75th Ranger Regiment," she said quietly. "Before that, I was selected for specialized assignment." The room went silent. Captain Moss looked like he had been slapped. The Major's mouth fell open. General Webb closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, there were tears forming at the corners. "Unit 17, he whispered. Lurene said nothing. "You were in Kandahar," the general continued. "Operation Silent Vengeance, March 7th, 2015, the compound in the Arghandab Valley." "Yes, sir." Captain Moss found his voice. "General, I do not understand. What is Unit 17? General Webb ignored him. His full attention was on Lurene. "According to every report I received, every operator in that compound died when the building collapsed. We recovered 3 bodies. The rest were listed as killed in action, remains unrecovered. Your name was on that list. You were declared dead." Lurene's jaw tightened. "I got out, sir. Barely, but I got out." The general's eyes moved to her wrist, to the tattoo that marked her as one of the rarest operators in American military history. Unit 17 had been a classified experimental program. 12 operators selected from across the special operations community. They received training that pushed beyond every known limit. They conducted missions that would never appear in any official record. And when the program was shut down after the Kandahar disaster, every file was sealed, every trace was buried, except for the tattoo. "Why did you not report in?"
the general asked. "Why did you let us believe you were dead?" "Because I was done, sir." Lurene's voice remained calm, but something harder entered her tone. "I spent 8 years running operations that did not exist for a country that would never acknowledge what we did. I lost my entire team in that valley. When I crawled out of the rubble, I decided I had given enough." General Webb nodded slowly. He understood. He had lost teams too. He had sent young men and women into situations where survival was optional and glory was forbidden. He had written letters to families who would never know the truth about how their children died. Captain Moss cleared his throat. "Sir, I still do not understand." The general finally turned to face him. "Captain, the woman you just insulted is a recipient of the Silver Star. She has more combat experience than everyone in this building combined. She conducted missions in 17 countries. She speaks 4 languages fluently, and she is only one of only 6 women ever selected for Unit 17, a program so classified that you do not have clearance to know it exists." Captain Moss's face turned bright red. General Webb looked back at Lurene. "You are working as a janitor." "It is honest work, sir." "You are wasting your skills." "I am staying alive, sir." She picked up her mop cart. "If there is nothing else, I need to finish my route." "Wait." The general's voice was firm now. Command voice, the voice that expected to be obeyed. "You do not get to walk away again, not this time." "With respect, sir, I walked away once. I can do it again." "No," the general said, "you cannot." He moved to stand directly in front of her. "You made it out of Kandahar for a reason. You survived when everyone else died for a reason, and spending the rest of your life pushing a mop is not honoring their sacrifice." Lurene's eyes flashed with anger. "You do not get to tell me how to honor them. You were not there. You did not watch them die. You did not spend 3 days crawling through hostile territory with a broken leg and 2 cracked ribs. You did not bury your team leader with your bare hands because there was no extraction coming." The room fell silent again. General Webb's expression softened. "You are right," he said quietly. "I was not there. But I read every report, I attended every memorial, and I have spent 10 years wishing I could have done something different, something that might have brought you all home." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. He wrote something on the back and handed it to Lurene. "This is my direct line," he said. "When you are ready to stop hiding, call me. We have work that needs doing, work that needs someone with your skills, someone who understands sacrifice, someone who knows what it means to walk through fire and come out the other side." Lurene looked at the card but did not take it. "I cannot go back," she said. "I am not asking you to go back. I am asking you to move forward. There is a difference." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The weight of 10 years hung in the air between them. The ghosts of Unit 17, the missions that never happened, the lives that were given in silence. Finally, Lurene reached out and took the card. "I'll think about it, sir. That is all I ask." She turned and pushed her cart toward the door. Captain Moss stepped aside quickly, his earlier arrogance completely gone. The major stood at attention without being ordered to do so. As Lurene reached the doorway, General Webb spoke one more time. "Lurene." She stopped but did not turn around. "Thank you for your service," he said, "and welcome home." Her shoulders tensed. For just a moment, something broke in her carefully maintained composure, but she did not let him see it. She simply nodded once and walked out into the hallway. General Webb watched her go. Captain Moss finally found his voice. "Sir, should I report this?" "No," the general said firmly. "This conversation never happened. That woman does not exist, and if I hear that you breathed a word of this to anyone, you will spend the rest of your career counting socks in a supply depot in Alaska. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear, sir." "Good. Now get out, both of you." The 2 officers left quickly. General Webb stood alone in the briefing room. He looked down at the scattered papers on the floor, reports and schedules and the endless paperwork of command. But his mind was somewhere else, in a valley in Afghanistan, at a compound that no longer existed, with a team of warriors who had given everything for a mission the world would never know about. He hoped Lurene would call. He hoped she would find a way back, not to war, but to purpose, to meaning, to the knowledge that her sacrifice had mattered. Down the hall, Lurene continued her route. She cleaned offices and emptied trash bins. She moved through the building like a shadow. To everyone who passed her, she was nobody, just the janitor, just part of the background. But inside her pocket, General Webb's card, and for the first time in 10 years, a small part of her wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. Because sometimes the greatest warriors walk among us unseen. Tell us what city you are watching from. Our community spans generations of Americans. If this story moved you, consider liking the video and subscribing for more tales of valor.